Welcome, everyone. David, I think just need to turn it down a little. Let's move it back here. Technology. Great. Is that better? You can still hear me? I have a really loud outside voice, so. Thank you all for being here. It's so wonderful to look around the room and see so much pink. Thank you for wearing pink and acknowledging that this Sunday is indeed Pink Sunday. It started 15 or 20 years ago with maybe 10,000 churches, and it's upwards of 500,000 plus now. So it's a wonderful way to recognize breast cancer awareness. And as we have done every year in our circle, we expand that just to acknowledge everyone who has either had cancer, knows someone who has cancer, someone who has survived, and of course, certainly those who have not. Our icons this evening, there is a pink ribbon, but also beside the pink ribbon is a lovely bracelet that Donna Stroud gave to me a number of years ago, and each of the wonderful crystals is a different color, and each of those colors stands for the color of a particular cancer, and that legend is there also. So I hope that you will take a moment to look at that. I understand that someone in this circle had a birthday this week. I know who that is. She's sitting right there. And it was a very special birthday. So Peter is going to play and we're going to sing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joan. Happy birthday to you.
It was my very best birthday ever in my whole life, and I planned it just the way I wanted it. So thank you.
There's some benefits to turning 80, isn't there? Joan has been with Star since the very beginning. She and David and Rita are some of the founding members that are still with us. We've had a lot of people walk this path. I don't mean they didn't come out quite right, did it? Yes. Some of them have walked the path, but are now walking a different path, and we miss them. But Joan was also the chairman, the board chair, when I came on board 10 years ago. So 24 years ago, David and Rita and Joan were part of this magnificent circle. So we wish you a very happy birthday. There are some stars in that little package just for you. As we begin all of our services, we begin with hand washing at the welcome altar back here. If you have not had an opportunity to do that, I invite you to do that now. This is our way of preparing ourselves for the service to come. So would you please, if you have not had an opportunity and would like to, now is the time. It is still in COVID style. It will change. Let's join our voices in the call to prayer. Together we pray. We bid you welcome, who come with weary spirit seeking rest, who come with troubles that are too much with you, who come hurt and afraid. We bid you welcome, who come with hope in your heart, who come with anticipation in your step, who come proud and joyous. We bid you welcome, who are seekers to a new faith, who come to probe and explore, who come to learn. We bid you welcome, who enter this place as a homecoming, who have found here room for your spirit, who find in this people a family. Whoever you are, whatever you are, wherever you are on your journey, we bid you welcome. And now, as we do each service, we bless our time together by coming to the altar and lighting one of the candles.
Would you please join me as we read responsively the blessing of our time together? Creator God, we always ask before we thank, for we are asking creatures. We ask for love, and thank you for the love you have inspired in us. We ask to be closer to you, and thank you for our capacity to pray. We ask for your understanding, and thank you for bringing us the light of your presence. We ask for happiness, and thank you for the joy of life. We ask for strength, and thank you for the courage you have given us to hope. We ask for your presence, and thank you for living in our hearts. We ask, and we have already received. Blessed be your name, O God, our Creator. Amen.
Would everyone please stand for the invocation of the four directions?
We are one in spirit. We are one in the land. Holy, holy, holy. We invoke the Great Spirit, the one who is here before time. The timeless one desires to be known by us, not just believed in by us. The Great One, the mysterious presence, invites us to know that we are the goodness of creation. Wankantanka encircles us with a hug. We are encircled by the arms of the mystery of the Holy One. The universe is a conspiracy organized just for us, our benefit. We burn sweetgrass and sage, given to us by Wankantanka, to connect the moon, the stars, the ocean, the earth, through trees, animals, and through other humans, and through ourselves. The Holy One is within us all. She is the full circle of earth, air, fire, water, and essence. Know that the drumbeat of the buffalo drum is the heartbeat of the universe, celebrating the goodness of creation in each of us. The flute's sweet, haunting sound reminds us we are known so that we may know God. Rock and Feather are joining us this evening because each has a spirit and a name. Facing to the east.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the East tell us every grain of dust has a wonderful soul. We are all stardust because we were created as a part of it all in the beginning, 13.8 billion years ago, and will remain so created in the end. Altogether, we are the goodness of creation. We are a word about God and a book about God. We are a revelation of the divine. Quarter turn to the right, facing south.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the South want us to know that heaven and earth are in us. To know this is to be healed. Altogether, we are the goodness of creation. We are a word about God and a book about God. We are a revelation of the divine. Quarter turn to the right, facing to the west.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the West want us to know we are truly creation in the process of being created and creating. We are co-creators with God herself. Altogether, we are the goodness of creation.
We are a word about God and a book about God. We are a revelation of the divine. Quarter turn to the right, facing north.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the North want us to know if the only prayer we would say in our whole lives is thank you, that would suffice. Altogether, we are the goodness of creation. We are a word about God and a book about God. We are a revelation of the divine. Facing to the center space.
The grandmothers and the grandfathers of the center space want us to see the face of God in every face. Our circle connects us to the living universe from which we were born into goodness. We journey together on the Via Positiva. Altogether, we are the goodness of creation. We are a word about God and a book about God. We are a revelation of the divine. We are all related. Namaste.
When we speak about creation spirituality, there are many tenets, but one of the tenets is compassion. And every community can be judged by how compassionate it is to each of its citizens. And so we developed a call to community service, and 3 or 4 times a year we come together as part of our Tranquility with Tea service, and we acknowledge, we recognize, and we hear more about one of those tenets, one of those institutions, one of those agencies, a nonprofit. This year, we have chosen hospice. Now, we all know that hospice is a very broad term, but then so aren't other terms. And this year, one of our council members, Peter Moore, serves on the Spartanburg Hospice Home Board, and he's going to share with us the role of the Spartanburg Hospice Home in our community. Peter?
I have 2 wonderful things to celebrate tonight and this week. One is Joan's birthday, and the other is I was recently elected chairman of the board of the hospice division of the Regional Medical Center. It was a hotly contested election. I was the only candidate, but I'm still very glad to have the office, and this will be my second go-around. I would like to tell you a little bit about our hospice program here. I'm proud of, and I'm very passionate about several programs that we have in Spartanburg. One of those is STAR, and the other is Regional Hospice. And I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I got involved in hospice. I was with a group of musicians and singers called the Healing Arts. And we were volunteers that went into various facilities, hospitals, nursing homes, patients' homes, and the hospice home. And the hospice home became one of my stops on rotation, and I began playing in the lobby. And then as I played, a nurse might come and say, "There's a family down the hall that would like for you to come play hymns for their loved one." I said, "Certainly." And I would go into patient rooms, and it was really an ethereal experience to me, because even though the person was often unconscious, the breathing patterns changed and there was movement in the bed, and it was obvious to me that we were communicating on some level. And as an aside, I will tell you that sometimes I played in rooms where families had gathered and there might be 10 or 15 people sort of waiting for those last hours of a patient. And sometimes I would try to lighten the mood, and I would sometimes divide up the group into teams and say, let's play Name That Tune. And one time I was doing that and I played it, and I would give a point to this team and a point to this team. I was playing a song and neither team seemed to get it, and the patient woke up and said, "Strangers in the Night." And that was the right answer. And that fellow had not spoken in a few days. And the nurse said at that point, be careful what you discuss in the room, because the sense of hearing is often the last of our senses that we have. But I was hooked immediately, and I told Healing Hearts, you can send me here all the time, because I fell in love with it. And I also, I had two mentors that helped me get involved in hospice. One was Jeff Barker, whom we recently lost in a tragic bicycle accident. He was the chairman of the board during the time that the hospice home was built. And Jeff was a remarkable person. He visited a lot of other hospice homes around the region and the country, and he came back with lists of things that he wanted us to have in ours and things that he did not want to have. He said, we're not going to call this a hospice house, we're going to call it a hospice home. And he said that on a winter day, he said, if I go in there on a winter day and it's cold, I want there to be a roaring fire. I want to smell chocolate chip cookies in the lobby. I want to see fresh flowers everywhere, and it's going to be like a home. He also said, and hospice homes, of course, there was a model to build hospice houses or homes, and one of the requirements was that there needed to be a back hallway from the rooms. If someone passed away, that would lead to a back door where the hearse would meet them, and they would take off from there. Jeff said, why don't we try going out the front door? Why don't we put the person on a cart and put a hospice quilt over them and some flowers, and let's go out and honor them, and the hearse will be at the front. We'll ask the family in advance what's the favorite hymn or piece of music, and that will play. It became a tradition that's followed to this point. And I've been there many times when this has happened, and it's really interesting because the families of other patients get into that procession out the door. Even the people who might be cleaning rooms or working on the air conditioning or something, everybody parades to the front door. It's very, very touching. One of my other mentors was Ethel Collier, who was a member of this church and a wonderful lady, and she was one of the prime movers in beginning hospice here in Spartanburg. She was also pretty much a character if you knew her. That's putting it mildly. In fact, she asked me if she could nominate me to be on the board of hospice. And I said, why do you think I would make a good board member? And she said, mostly because I need a ride to the meetings, because I can't drive anymore. So at least she was honest about it. Ethel said another thing too. The hospice home was built, and the original building, which is quite beautiful, there was a drive to the front door which was uncovered. And Ethel said, if I have to be here someday and I'm leaving and it's raining, my hair could get wet, and I want a portico, I want a cover over this drive. She left in her will an amount that enabled us to build that covered portico. If you went out there today, you'll see a plaque on that dedicated to Ethel Collier. But she got me involved, and the rest is history. What is hospice anyway? The definition of the word is, it means a place of rest for the weary. A medical hospice is health care focused upon palliation of a terminally ill patient's pain and attending to their emotional and spiritual needs and that of their loved ones at the end of life. The first hospice that we know of was actually in Malta in 1605, believe it or not. 1065. Providing care for the ill who were going and dying, who were going to the Holy Land or back, and it provided care for them. The hospice concept flourished throughout the Middle Ages, and much of that was devoted to the care of people with tuberculosis. The first modern hospice was founded in England in 1967. Dame Cecily Saunders, a registered nurse and later a physician, focused on the patient and their needs rather than the disease, and was attentive to the psychological and spiritual aspects of the family. It was also during that era that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, a Swiss psychiatrist, spoke and wrote eloquently about the medical response to terminal illness, and her book on death and dying stimulated a great deal of interest in how we face our own death and that of others. In the United States, Florence Wald, who was the dean of the School of Nursing at Yale, started a hospice in 1971. And the first hospice house or home, the Alive Hospice, was built in Nashville, Tennessee. Hospice was largely a volunteer organization until a major breakthrough. In about 1982, Congress initiated the Medicare hospice benefit, which passed and went into effect in 1986. And that enabled hospice programs around the country to expand and to rely upon funds other than donations to care for terminally ill patients. In 1993, President Clinton installed hospice as a guaranteed benefit. Hospice is actually the only Medicare or Medicaid program that provides for almost 100% of patients' needs, in-home and inpatient care. Pharmaceuticals, palliative care. Here in Spartanburg, at the regional hospice program, even if a patient doesn't have Medicare or Medicaid or health insurance, there will never be a bill for hospice care. Our local program, I'm proud to say that our hospice home became a national model for some period. In my first tour as chairman of that division, I was often hosting groups from other communities around the country because they'd heard so much and read so much about ours. And they wanted to be sure to implement some of the things in their buildings and programs that we had. We're approaching the 20-year anniversary of the regional hospice home. It's a 15-bed facility. All of the rooms face a beautiful garden in the rear and have a private patio. And we make sure that we're taking care of the patient and all the loved ones as much as we can. If the hospice home happened to be full and someone needed care, there is a unit at the regional called palliative care, which can serve people's pain reduction and care until a bed develops in the hospice home. Hospice home is for patients, but it also is for families. We provide what we call respite care. If you've ever taken care of a really sick person, you know how difficult and draining it can be, and sometimes it's much harder on the caregiver than it is on the patient. And sometimes families just need for the patient to be in a 24-hour care facility for a while to provide some rest for those who are providing the care. We also operate a program for children who are losing or who have lost a parent or a close relative, and that's called Christopher's Camp. And it's runs several weekends out of the year for children who are suffering from grief. And we also have bereavement groups for other members of the family after the end of life. One of my favorite things that we have at Regional Hospice is something called the Special Needs Fund. And it's an unusual fund in that it's for anything that we want to use it for. You probably read sometimes in obituaries, memorial gifts may be made to hospice, and they say Jeff Davis Drive. Or you might hear of a fundraiser like Festival of Trees that we used to have, or Hope Blooms for Hospice. The funds that are generated in those things go to this fund that we have control over called the Special Needs Fund. It helps us pay for things that are not covered by any form of insurance or Medicare or Medicaid, and it is wide open. And so many of these families are in very, very serious and heart-wrenching circumstances. Sometimes it's the breadwinner in the family who is in hospice and the family is without income. Sometimes the Special Needs Fund will help them with food. I've known for them to fund a trip for a son to come see his mother in the hospice home and pay for lodging and transportation. I could go down a long list of things we've used that for, and some I can hardly talk about. But we also, as you probably know, we try to provide food for all hospice families at Thanksgiving and Easter. That's in cooperation with the Wage Restaurant, and we take to the families' homes a box that will feed a family for 3 or 4 days, and Wage has been very helpful with that. They do it at less than their cost, and the Special Needs Fund picks up the rest of the cost of that. But let me tell you a couple of things that I think are good to know. When I was first chairman of the hospice division, I was out making talks to civic groups quite a bit. Lions, Sertoma, Rotary, this kind of thing, garden clubs, all kinds of organizations. And by virtue of that, I started getting calls at my home sometimes from people asking questions. And sometimes they weren't very nice. People would say, I need to make a complaint about hospice. The nurse didn't come when she was supposed to. Or I wanted my mother to go to the hospice home and she's in a bed in another county rather than in the hospice home. My response usually was, which hospice are you being served by? And they'd always say, well, Spartanburg Hospice. And I would say there are 28 of them operating in this county. There is fierce competition among hospice programs. Some of these are for-profit and some are non-profit. Luckily for me, it was never the program I was affiliated with that was causing any kind of problem, but people were very surprised to find out that there are many, many hospice programs, and it gets to be very competitive and sometimes not much fun to see the competition going on. So I guess the reason I'm telling you this is that it's a good idea if you have a relative or a friend or loved one who you think might need hospice care at some point, it is a good idea to check with their health insurance, or if they're in a retirement home, find out if there's an existing contract with a hospice program and look into it. If it's one that you like and you study it and it's fine, so be it. But if you're not happy with it, or if they have a contract with nursing home beds that are 50 miles away, it might be a good idea for you to express the preference. I want to be served by the regional hospice home. The patient and the family have the right to make that change, but most people are not aware of the number of hospice programs and the variation in quality among some of those hospice programs. So I hope that my passion for hospice is contagious. Would love to see you love it as much as I do. And I hope that I can stimulate you to call me sometime. If you have not seen the hospice house, I'd love to take you there and meet you there. I know we've still got some COVID restrictions, but we'll arrange to go there. If you're a member of a small group or Sunday school class or a club or something, and you'd like to meet there, I'll meet you there. And the hospital will provide some refreshments. I've had it used to be, if I had out-of-town guests coming in and they wanted to see some of Spartanburg, I would take them around to Hatcher Gardens and some beautiful places, and I would say, and I want you to go to the hospice home. And they'd say, I don't need to see a hospice home. And I'd say, you need to see this one. And I'd take them there. Inevitably, they would say at the end, I see why you wanted me to go there. That place is spectacular, and so is the staff. There are ways that you can be involved too, and I hope you will. The meal delivery at Thanksgiving and Easter. Sometimes it's meal delivery to families who are literally without food while their patient is under hospice care or when they've lost a friend or family member. At the hospice home itself, there are all kinds of volunteer opportunities, clerical, visiting, flowers, all kinds of things. And of course, we always welcome donations to that special needs fund. And so I guess my final message is please come visit, bring friends, and I want you to share the pride I have in Spartanburg has one of the finest hospice programs in America, and we all need to be proud of it, and we all need to see it too. And I hope you'll join me, and let's go visit. We're kind of nationally famous as having one of the best hospice programs in America. And that's all I've got. Any questions? But thank you for having me, and thank you for letting me be a part of STAR. It's one of my favorite things, too.
Thank you, Peter. And now, as we have listened to Peter and know more about the hospice home, there are many joys and there are many concerns in our own lives. And at this time in the service, we are all invited to step up to the altar, pick up some pebbles, and those are representative of our prayers, our joys, and our concerns. And as we drop them into the water, as the bubbles float to the surface, those are our prayers being opened up, lifted up, unfolded into the ethers. And as we sit and are present to those who are offering their prayers, we remain prayerfully present to their prayers as well. Will you join me as we sing All Shall Be Well? All shall be well. All shall be well. All manner of things shall be well. All shall be well. We are supported by each and every one of you, your time, your talent, your treasure. And folks who give of their time are like Catherine, who is our Zoom director, who is here every Sunday to make sure that our Zoomers are able to be part of this wonderful circle. Kathy Quackenbush shares her wonderful musical talents with us at this service. Our tea servers this evening are Martha Badger and Gail McCormick. And our greeter sitting back there in the back is Les Howard. It takes a lot of folks to make this happen. And we had a new person with us today, Kathy Emmerith, brewed the tea for us and set up, and we thank you ever so much. It does, as I said, take an entire community. And David and Rita write the beautiful directions and lead them. We have drummers, we have sage keepers. Again, it takes each and every one of us helping to make this circle as rich and diverse as it is. I'm going to ask Kay and Les if they would come up and help pass our offering stars. They're right in front of the tea altar. We are ever so grateful for your generosity, and a portion of the offering this evening is being donated to the Hospice home in Spartanburg, honoring Peter for sharing his creative energy with us. Thank you. Again, joining our voices in the Taizé chant, Ubi Caritas. Ubi Caritas et amor. Ubi Caritas Deus ibi est. Live in charity and steadfast love. Live in charity, God will dwell with you. One quick note as we begin our tea service. The sweets this evening are both gluten-free and vegan-free, so we invite everyone to join us in that sweet and then the sip of bitter tea. One last thing before we begin. After the service, sitting on that table in the back are some of the finest pink sweets you are ever going to taste. Thank you, Sandra. They are beautiful. So we hope you will spend some time after the service with us, and Peter will be here to answer some questions or just to chat. It's time for tea. Peter, I'm going to ask you if you would extinguish the candle for us. I think there's a candle snuffer there. And as Peter is doing that, can we join our voices in the closing prayer? And though we extinguish our community candle, we do not extinguish the warmth of community, the spirit of gratitude, the fire of commitment, and our shared compassion during this time together as community. The light of hope, hope for change that brings new blessings into our lives and the lives of those around us, remains and will continue to burn brightly. We carry the light of hope in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. If we could stand as we are able and join our voices. Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround us everywhere, everywhere you may go. Until we meet again on November the 14th, this is a fabulous service. God's peace, God's grace, and God's blessing go with each one of you. Thank you. And now we're going to have some sweets.